Do you feel you were born for more? Get ready to uncover your God-given purpose so you can impact the world with your gifts, your talents, and your story. Welcome to our Purpose Power Summit series. I'm your host, Mimika Cooney, and today's guest is going to be sharing how to find your divine rhythm. Dori Staehle had a freak accident that triggered a rare disease and caused her to rethink her life and purpose. She asked God to give her a way to heal herself, and the answer was, use your drums. In 2 weeks, she was healed. She started her business, Rock the Next Stage, with $40, and she began sharing the healing power of drumming with others by mentoring them so they could rock the next stage of their lives. Dori is also a best-selling author of Find Your Divine Rhythm, a creative success formula, and she's now working on her second book. So welcome, Dori. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you on today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll have to say to the audience, we have had some major resistance to get this content out there. Between technical issues and me losing my voice and getting pneumonia, we shall not be moved. We shall continue because God knows what he's going to do. He's got his hand on all of this. And we know that if you're listening today, you were meant to be here, and this is for a reason. So before we get started, if you know somebody who needs to hear this, make sure to share with your friends. Click the links below the video. We would love to have you join us. But let's dive right in. I would really love you to share with the audience how your background and your story and where it got you where you are today.
Well, it's interesting because I was just drumming as a hobby. I always wanted to try playing drums or percussion, preferably drums. My dad said, who was a musician, by the way, nope, drums are too loud. Here's a guitar. So for many years, I said, all right, I guess I wasn't meant to play the drums, but it still nagged at me. And I kept watching drummers and things. And finally, I visited a church and I noticed they had drums, a percussion setup on stage. Now, many people don't know what percussion is, so I'll explain. Bongos, conga drums, shakers, tambourine, chimes, Latin and African drums. It was a really huge setup, and I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool? So I applied to audition, no lessons, never touched those kind of drums before, maybe just a little bit to play around, but nothing serious. Passed the audition. I've been with them ever since, and that was 12 years ago.
So it just shows you if you've got something in you, that little tiny little voice of
exactly.
This is something I'm aiming. Like it's almost like a beacon, right? It's that draws you in.
It really did, and I always had beats in my head as a kid. I was the hyper kid who was always tapping on things, and sure, dance lessons helped, but it wasn't quite the same. So I realized as I was drumming that I felt calmer. Mm-hmm. It's like energizing and calming at the same time. And so I had a day job during the recession, right around 2009 to 2011 here in the US. And I realized that I couldn't focus working in an office with people coming in and out. But if I took a small drum, a djembe, which is an African drum shaped like an hourglass kind of thing, I kept that in my car. And if I drummed during my lunch hour, I would come back to work and I wouldn't flip numbers anymore. And I thought, I shouldn't be flipping numbers. I've got an MBA in finance, for Pete's sakes. But it was what the stress was doing to my brain. And that's when I realized, you and I have talked about my ADHD research. That was the last piece of the puzzle. I was trying to figure out what causes those symptoms and what's the trigger. And stress was a really big one. So I started using drums with students, hand drums, during their tutoring sessions, because I was doing some tutoring on the side. And I noticed that it worked like a charm. So I thought, well, this is pretty cool. Took some additional training through an organization known as Drums and Disabilities, and also with Health Rhythms International, which is a division of Remo Drums. And that's how I got tapped into, literally, the idea that you can really use drumming for health and wellness. It's scientifically based. There's loads of studies that back this up. Hand drumming has been used with different populations, from kids with special needs to seniors, and I've done it all, really. Ages 5 to 100, I've worked with different people for different things, in groups and individually. And it's funny because I was seeing the results on them, but it wasn't until the accident that I ever thought of using the drums on me. Isn't that silly?
Oh, wow.
It's like that expression, the plumber always has a leaky faucet, right? And so I was in a lot of pain. It was a freak accident. A bicycle dude ran through a crowd and took me out. And there were 200 people, and I was the only one that got hit. So yeah, at the time I was really, really stunned and angry. Like, how could this happen? And then I realized many years later that God knew what was going on. He prevented me from having any further injuries because I never hit the ground, but it still caused whiplash, concussion, lots of brain fog, lots of pain. 7 different body parts were affected. I couldn't go anywhere without wearing ace bandages. I was trying to go to networking meetings and, fake it till you make it. That's the musician's credo. And I think for a lot of Christians, especially Christian women, because especially if you're a mom, you got to fake it till you make it, right? You take care of everyone else, but you don't take care of yourself because you're fine. You're not going to let anyone know that you're not fine.
Because we have to hold it together, right?
You got to hold it together. That's a sign of weakness. I always thought asking for help is a sign of weakness. That was how I actually approached it. But finally, I realized that the doctors weren't helping. Nothing was working. In fact, some of the things that they prescribed actually made things worse. So finally, I said, enough of this. 3 years of aggravation and stress, and it was just awful. And I started losing feeling in my legs and my right arm. And I thought, this can't be good. And so I discovered that I had the symptoms of a rare neurological disorder called Tarlov cyst disease. And I went for an MRI, and the scans came back with the results, and I had cysts all over my spine. And when I looked it up, never look up your symptoms on the internet, folks, because you really, really get scared. So I saw that this is a rare degenerative disease that would be getting progressively worse. And the numbness, it was neurological. And I kept trying to tell the doctors, it feels like something is pushing, against my tailbone especially. Something's not right. I know when something's not right. I'm a former dancer and a former runner, and I swim, and I still swim 26 laps or 52 lengths 3 or 4 times a week. I'm in really good shape. So I know when something doesn't feel right. And if I'm in pain, I never would go to the doctor. So their whole theory of she's a hypochondriac, why do they do that with women? Would they do that with a guy? It really bugs me to no end. If you say you have symptoms, if you're a woman, they say, oh, it must be all in your head. No, it's not in my head. It's in 7 different body parts. Let me show you.
Especially like even mothers, because us mothers know. We have that instinctual knowledge that something is up with our kids. And then doctors do tend to just brush it off, right? So
the message was I asked God, I give up. When you get to the point where you stop trying to fix everything yourself and realize that you are not God and that, he's the one that I needed to turn to. I had to stop trying to be so type A, and just admit that I needed help. And that's really, really hard when you're used to, especially as an entrepreneur, I juggle all the plates. I don't have anybody helping me. I've got 3 businesses and I'm so used to doing it all. How could I possibly be in this position? So it was hard, but I said, okay, I give up. Give me a way to heal myself and heal others. And now we're talking. Got all New Jersey. My New Jersey attitude came back because I was really, really mad and frustrated. And the answer I got back was a very quiet, still voice. Because when I could finally be quiet and shut off my brain for a little bit, imagine that, you can actually hear things. And the message I got back was, Dori, open your eyes. Because they were praying with my eyes closed. Open your eyes. I already did. Use your drums. Wow. So I thought, oh, yes, the vibration. It's the sound waves from the drums that can help you recalibrate things. I always joke it's like chiropractic without the cracking, And if people are out there thinking, oh, my gosh, this is too woo-woo and this is new age and all that, I've heard all of it, so you won't shock me at all. I don't own a single stitch of tie-dye, so I always joke, this ain't your mama's drum circle, folks. I'm a rock chick, play in a band. I play with cover bands. So for me, no, I had to really wrap my brain around this. I looked up all the science because I needed to know, how did I get better after only 2 weeks of drumming? How am I going to explain this to people? Because after 2 weeks, I realized I've got no more shooting pain in my tailbone and no balance issues, no brain fog. I tested it all out. I'm doing arabesques, ballet moves in my office and thinking, whoa. And that's when I realized, all right, I've been given divine rhythm and a unique mission. Divine rhythm, unique mission, that spells drum. That's the acronym. That'll be the title of my next book, Finding God's Purpose for Your Life. So if you've been given gifts that you don't understand, I have other spiritual gifts that didn't make sense either. And in many churches, they don't talk about them. So I thought, oh my gosh, where's this coming from? Am I the only one that can do this? This is so odd. So I asked for all of it back. I said, okay, the other stuff that I didn't understand, I'll take that back too. So what was happening is I would go out and I would drum, and I was given the right words to say. And I knew what needed to be said when, and sometimes I knew what people had been through. And I would just say affirmations and just messages from God to let them know it's going to be okay. And that was a really, really big stress relief for them. And then we would drum, and I would use special techniques depending on what was going on. If they had ADHD issues, I would drum differently. If they needed some clarity, or if they had some PTSD issues going on, that would be a different approach. And if they had any illnesses or ailments going on, headaches, muscle aches, or whatever, I would break out a different type of drum, even to use. A Native American buffalo drum works really well for that. So yeah, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, this is so bizarre. But hey, there's lots of different ways to help people heal. This is an ancient tool that was used for centuries. It
reminds me of David, right? When he used to play music for the king. It's like, you kind of think, well, if it was that soothing, there's something about song. And I mean, I'm a big proponent. I'm also a dancer like you, very much musically based. And it's like people know that you play music, it just calms people. There's something about music and the gifts that God's put within us. Like for you, and I really believe, like, no matter your situation, He's going to use what you have. And for you, that was your thing, right? For you, using the rhythm that you already had within you, but because you weren't really paying attention to it, you kind of stuffed it down for years, it creates that internal frustration. But once you really tune into those inherent gifts that God has actually put in each of us, and we start to recognize it, and I believe that's how God can heal us. But yeah, definitely, it's all biblical. It's all in the Bible too, It
really is. And there was a friend of mine who unfortunately recently left us, and he was a drummer friend, and he told me when I explained that some of the churches wouldn't let me come in and tell my story because I mentioned, and I also bring drums. They were like, drums in church? Oh my gosh. And I said, hey, Psalm 150 is what he told me. Tell them to look up Psalm 150. He called it the drummer's psalm. Make a joyful noise to the Lord with loud crashing cymbals. Hello. Mm-hmm. But I don't bring loud crashing cymbals. I just bring drums that could be a little loud if you got a lot of people using them. But,
well, think about the Wall of Jericho. They would walk around for 6 days. Trumpets and drums and loud clanging cymbals is what they used to bring down the wall. King Hezekiah, when he went into, purge the temple, he had all the priests and high priests come and cleanse the temple by making loud noises and singing and praising the Lord. It's you just need to look it up in the Bible. It really is not something new. It's just something I think in our modern society we've lost. We've lost that touch with things that are inherently built in within our whole being.
Right. And drums are actually used throughout the Bible. They're mentioned throughout the Bible, but they're called something else. They're called timbrels in many cases, which is a flat drum with like tambourine jingles inside of it. So women were the first drummers, just letting you know. That it was very, very common. And then, of course, we adapted and have all different types of drums that make different sounds. But hey, I was a kid who was really, really bouncy. And these days, what do? They label these kids and recommend them for stimulants. But my prescription is percussion.
Exactly. And we did another interview before about this whole issue. And the reason, I'll put the link below this video too, if you'd like to listen to that. Because I feel it's vitally important that we really, we don't deny who we are. God has given us these gifts, and when we try to pretend to be something we're not, we create that internal turmoil. But when we tap into those things that we know that God has given us, I mean, if you just look at babies, I remember all three of my kids taking them to music lessons from the moment they could sit. And like we're saying, is finding your rhythm. When everything is aligned and everything is in rhythm in your life, when your mind, your body, and your soul and your spirit are in tuned, you can hear God. You're walking in what God's purposed you to do. There is no frustration.
Right. So, folks, you've got to think in terms of a metaphor here. When I say find your divine rhythm, I don't mean that everybody should go out there and become a drummer. It's just your divine rhythm are the gifts and talents that God gave you to use to bless others. So if you haven't found out what that is, then you just need to dig deeper. I do different exercises with people. I include mentoring and coaching into what I do in many, many cases. And we uncover, what is it that lights you up inside?
Well, talking of which, let's give us some actionable tips. Like somebody's listening now, they want to know, like, well, how do I find those? Give us a couple of tips that they can really take it home with them.
Sure. I always tell people to think back to when they were a kid, right? What did you really love to do? Again, what lights you up inside? What brings you joy? What do you do that others come to you for? Maybe you're a good listener. Maybe you give good advice. Maybe you fix things really well. Maybe you're an awesome cook. Maybe you're extremely creative and crafty, and you're the one who can make anything, with the drop of a hat. You can just see designs, and that's your thing, and you never thought it was a big deal. Well, I just ask people, okay, let's identify your initial interests. What do people come to you for? What lights you up? And also, here's a good one. I always tell them, find your why. Your why is a cause or a passion, something that really, really tugs at your heartstrings. Because sometimes I meet people who have the makings of a great nonprofit. And your why is what makes you cry.
Ah, that's a good one. I like that. Your why is what makes you cry.
So if something chokes you up so much and you think, someone's got to do something about that. Well, guess what? To quote Matthew West, maybe that someone is you.
Amen to that. I tell you, those are some excellent tips. Well, I have to tell everybody, by being part of the Summit Series, our speakers are giving away awesome complimentary gifts to those who sign up to our list. So if you want to get hold of Dori's gift, which is 5 ways to stay focused and fearless, go to mimikacooney.com and click on the Summit tab. You'll be able to download all our gifts, and it's been great, the kind of content we'll be getting, and yours is also awesome. So give us a little update about what exactly is included in there.
Sure. Well, since I've worked with so many creative types especially, but just about anyone who's super, super busy and you're juggling lots of plates, it's really easy to lose focus and either not finish things or not even start things because you don't have a system in place. So I break things down in manageable chunks to give people some tips and exercises so that they can be more focused on whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. A lot of people pick a word of the year, for example. I'm really big on goal setting. It's the only way I was able to finish book number 1 was by having a timeline and different pieces of the puzzle that I would do at different times. So I tell people different strategies to organize their thoughts and to actually accomplish their tasks so that they can hit that big goal and so that they'll have the confidence to do what it is that God wants you to do right here, right now, with what you have.
Well, I think that's excellent tools to be able to take those baby steps, because sometimes we can feel overwhelmed, whether you want to write a book, start a nonprofit, go back to a creative arts project you did as a kid, whatever it is that you feel like, God's put in your heart to do. By taking those baby steps and having that help really does help. So tell our audience how they can reach out and find you online.
Sure. You can go to my website, rockthenextstage.com. And again, sometimes I put people on the real stage because I do work with musicians and singers. But most of the time when I say rock the next stage, I mean rock the next stage of your talent, your business, or your life. So yes, rockthenextstage.com. I have lots of info on there. You can download. I've got lots of blogs on there, articles.
That'll be great. Well, we'll have the link as well below the video, so to make sure that you can get access to that content. So if you've enjoyed today's content, make sure to share it with your friends. You never know who might need to hear this today. So make sure you do that today. And any last words, Dori, before we wrap up? You want to share?
Well, I would just like to tell people out there, especially women of a certain age, You're never too old. It's never too late to rock what you've got. So rise up, use your gifts and talents, and bless others.
Oh, that's awesome. That's going to be a tweetable. Totally tweetable. Like, it's going to have to be one of the quotes we use. So I'm so inspired by that. Well, I'm going to say thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I always love chatting to you. We could always talk a handlig of a donkey. And I just appreciate you sharing your heart and really, your journey with the Lord and how he's really been able to help you with your next stage. So again, thanks for everyone for joining us. Make sure to share and make sure to reach out to Dori and tell her you saw her here on our Summit series. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Purpose Power Summit series. Take care. Become a partner and join the Mimika TV family today.